Good morning. I'm Sara, editor of FMJ, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar, Flexible Working, How Facilities Managers Can Create the Perfect Balance. The challenges posed by managing hybrid work models, meeting sustainability targets, and dealing with economic pressures require fine balancing act for FMs. This is set to become more complicated with government plans to allow staff to work more flexibly. However, according to a recent report by Matrix Booking, this push for flexible work arrangements, including reduced work weeks, presents FMs with the opportunity to make a real difference. Armed with the right technology, they can access valuable data to meet the needs of all stakeholders, from the C-suite to employees. Today's webinar brings together a panel of workplace thought leaders to discuss how FMs can create the perfect balance. I'll be putting a series of questions to the panel, but would also love your input. So please do post any queries or comments, and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. Right, can I just start by getting the panel to introduce themselves and their organisations? If we start with Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. My name is Matt Bailey. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Matrix Booking, where we specialise in we produce software for workplace resource management. So that is allowing employees to book resources and allowing the organisations to understand what is going on within their workplace.
Go to Mark.
Hi, everyone. Mark Griffiths. I'm the MD of WMA Consulting, my own consultancy business specialising in workplace and facilities management advice to clients and service providers as well. We've been established now for the best part of 5.5 years. Before that, operations director with Weig Energies and Services, which most of you will now know as Equans, and prior to that with Skanska, and in the last century, unfortunately, Interserve. So good to meet you all. Also, on a voluntary basis, chair of judges for the IWFM Awards, and also a member of a couple of BSI committees focusing on the built environment and FM.
Brilliant, thanks. And Wayne, as client side.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Wayne Young. I'm the head of FM for DB Cargo, the UK's largest and leading UK rail logistics firm. We've got around 200 properties across the UK, a large corporate head office, and prior to that, I've led FM for Hermes and Just Eat, where we've looked at how we can utilise our office structures in the most efficient way.
Brilliant. And Hans, over to you.
Hello there. Thank you, Sarah. As Hans Naimi, I've been working within the built asset environment for many years now. And, my areas of kind of focus are around facilities management, operations systems, built asset technologies, smart technologies, and also geospatial intelligence. And really the geospatial intelligence aspect of it has come about since COVID. Those are where I acquired new skills on taking spatial intelligence to another level. Ultimately, I deal with clients that are across the board. So they can be corporate clients, or they can be what I call service integrator technology companies, including companies like Microsoft, where I've had a great relationship with their workplace innovations teams. So I've got a broad understanding of technologies right across the built asset industry sector, both current and future.
Excellent. Thanks for that. If we start off then, I wanted to start with what kind of gave us the idea for this webinar, which was Matrix report, because you were looking at how facilities managers can balance employee and organisational needs. So Matt, what does the report suggest organisers are doing at the moment to monitor their desk usage and manage their room bookings?
Yeah, I think so. So the first point I want to make is that understanding and balancing both employee needs and organisational needs is incredibly complex, and is the main challenge that the facilities managers that we speak with on a daily basis are facing. So, we all see those headlines daily about return to work mandates being imposed, and that's one side of the equation. What probably garners less headlines, but is just as common from what we see, is where organisations are focusing on flexibility and making the office a welcoming, collaborative environment to visit. So if we look at those two extremes, one organisation mandating X number of days in the office versus another organisation being completely flexible about attendance, but wanting to encourage a collaborative workplace, the reasons for monitoring utilisation and usage vary wildly. And our view is very much that understanding the intent that people have to come into the office, what they're looking to book in advance, and what they're looking to use, combined with real-time data about what actually happens when they are there, is the only way that facilities managers and the wider business is able to make or propose informed decisions about policy and office layouts. So it's incredibly complex. Understanding and balancing that is really, really difficult. But once you have that, once you understand that need, we see that there's a real necessity to monitor and gather data to make informed decisions.
I'd like to sort of look at the situation as a whole before we dig deeper into the solution side. I mean, there's so many different reports coming out in the media. One minute you're hearing about, office mandates, return to the office, and then you're hearing absolutely not. The government are obviously coming up with a lot more flexible work ideas. There's the talk about the 4-day week. And also, I mean, there's this whole generational thing, people saying people simply will not take a job now if they don't have the flexibility to work, not just when they want to in the office, but where they want to work in the office. So I'd like to sort of go around the room, as it were, and get everyone's view on that, where they see it from their perspective. I mean, if we kick up with you, Mark, from some of the data that you have, what is your view? What are you sort of hearing that is trying to dig down and find out what is the reality, basically, of the hybrid working?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the data, but I think the key fundamental is every organisation is going, and type of organisation is going to have a different approach. We've done work with stockbroking organisations and the like. We're doing some work with a company called GWI at the moment. They're very much around collecting data for their clients and giving them insights into what goes on. Both of them use data are very client orientated in terms of what value they offer, but they've got those people have got totally different approaches in how they go about having their teams in, and a lot of it's culture, a lot of it's the type of staff they have, but also where they're adding value. And I think we also do some work for the NHS. Typically, their back office functions can work remotely, but the majority of their staff cannot work remotely, but also still want to have a good workplace to be in. So I think what's got to complement the data and what you've got with the value that organisations like Matt's company bring and others is understanding the customer experience, and that's also your inward facing customers, what they want, they'll all have different personas and where they are. And I think if that's driving some of the data driven decision making that you can contribute to your business and add value, then that's going to help a lot, in my opinion.
Hans, do you find this? I mean, you're dealing with different clients, probably on the tech side, and that, I mean, in that world, there's been a lot of announcements about office mandates and things like that. What are you seeing in terms of your clients? What they're looking at?
What I would definitely say, and I would go back to the kind of COVID period when I was working with a insurance company, reinsurance company, and I remember saying to the COO that we had not experienced anything like COVID before, and that the kind of spatial measurements that I had used previously to determine occupancy, utilization, and attendance were not going to work because everybody was working from home during the lockdown. And I had a conversation with the head of HR, and what became apparent was that I had to design a completely new method of measurement that would support the HR department to understand the demographic of their resources based on both financial regulations and compliance for the different business units. And what I realized about that, and certainly with clients and customers that I've been speaking to and developing measurement solutions for is that, as Mark and Matt have kind of like alluded to, every client is different. I have a simple rule now, is that I do not implement any technology without understanding what the model of measurement is going to be for the multiple stakeholders within an organization. Because facilities management want different data sets. HR want different data sets. The executive board want data sets. So the skill is that if you don't create a new type of model of measurement that encapsulates the needs of all of the stakeholders, it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
And I've been thrown into the deep end with regards to technology, where you've got new buildings going up, and I'm being asked, what does the future look like, Hans? And how would we measure, our workspace going forward with the multiple generations? And it's not easy to answer that kind of question, and you have to go back simply to what I call the drawing board, the blank sheet of paper, and understand the needs of everybody. Now we have employees that have become spatial experts.
Yeah.
Because they manage where and when they want to work. Their experience and decisions were taken within the COVID period about workspace. And what we're finding is that the hybrid working policies, what started out as one policy of mandating 2 days, 3 days in the office or no mandate, and the space that had been designed to support that, that's now evolved. So organizations are going through maybe 2, 3, 4 iterations of what is the best fit. And you can only do that through measurement. And then you get the complementary systems that enable you to provide the insights based on what's being recorded. But that all falls down to how the systems are configured and how you develop what is your method of measurement. And that's really what I'm being pushed in a direction to do.
That is really interesting. Wayne, from your perspective, you're looking at your organization's needs. Are you having discussions, about how this is managed? And are you finding it's difficult to get a picture of how to plan in the future in that respect?
Yeah, I think we're on the precipice of huge change, and I think that's the challenge right now. I think there's so many advancements in technology on the back of COVID, and I just don't think we're really clear on what the next 5 to 10 years really looks like, and that's a challenge, because actually from a facilities manager perspective, trying to design a workplace for the future, nobody really knows what that looks like. We've got, like I say, the rise of the 4-day request from a flexible working element, but also businesses looking at that as a real benefit. But also there's the mandated return to work stuff that we are hearing about, and that's driving some of that fear within the workplace. And I think the fear within the workplace is going to drive more of those flexible working requests, which then reduces the headcount in the office, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's just so many moving plates at the moment. You can't really go, right, okay, that's the way we should go. And then you add to that, 5 years ago, we were looking at stereotypical offices, get as many people in as you can. All that changed. And nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years around that again. So it's a changing market, it's a changing world. I think, like I say, we're on the precipice of change, and that change happening will happen in the next 5 years, and that will really design what we look like for the future. Brilliant. Matt, you had...
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasise what Wayne was saying, that it is really hard to understand what's going on. So, particularly when you're talking around mandates for 4-day working weeks, etc. What we see across lots of our clients is that these mandates come down from senior management. By the time they reach specific line managers, that they're not fulfilled. People don't make their staff come in 4 days a week if that's going to cause distraction. So I can completely understand, Wayne. If you're being told that you've got a plan for a 4-day working week, but 50% of your line managers aren't enforcing those rules, that makes it incredibly difficult.
It is tricky. So I think really what we're establishing, let's face it, we all hope that we've moved on from the pandemic, but I mean, part of it seems to me that we're still in many ways running offices pre-pandemic, and the rules have totally changed. I mean, Mark, you've your hand up. What was your?
Yeah, I think I was at an event the other day and Workplace Futures, and they were talking about this, and I think that pace of change that Hans referred to earlier, it came across a lot. It would have happened eventually anyway, but it's come across so much more quickly. But I think the other thing is this is an opportunity for FM and workplace practitioners as well to really, seize the moment. There's going to be a widening of their roles and responsibilities, I think. And, going back to Wayne's point, you'll eventually end up with, that conundrum of how we're making sure the workplace is safe for an end user when they're at home. It's already affecting lots of our clients that we're talking to at the moment. I think that's another evolution in what we do, but also an opportunity to add value to organisations and where they're going and the like.
Both Hans and Wayne. If we go to Hans and then to Wayne, everyone's got a lot of opinion on this. Hans?
Oh, yeah. So, picking up on Mark and Matt, regarding the kind of flexible kind of patterns and the mandates, and it coming from above high, downwards. The reality is that the government introduced a series of regulation changes to flexible working and incorporated hybrid under the umbrella of flexible working. And the reality is that when we measure traditionally, we measured FTE and kind of PTE and looked at the badge swipe data to look for general attendance in the office. Where we have to kind of reflect and review now is to try and understand, what does flexible working mean to the organization? What does flexible working mean to HR, to line managers? Because how a line manager manages their team, if we say that the corporate policy is 3 days a week, but there is a flexible policy in place for individuals, you have to be able to accommodate that. And I've found that traditional methods of measurement have excluded certain metrics, and so therefore we don't get visibility of it. And it's absolutely a moving feast, and it's one of those scenarios now. And I agree with what everybody's presenting here, and that it's difficult. And a word was used, which was called complex. So if we're in a complex world, we need to start looking at the ability to be able to utilize complex measurement. And that's why I'm beginning to see, actually, you've got to work right across the organization to get a true understanding of what the requirement is and what the needs are. No one department, no one division, like FM, who have a whole host of other duties to do, will be able to make a clear kind of strategy without having involvement from all other members of the organization.
Yeah, good point. Wayne?
Yeah, and to kind of counter what Hans was saying a little bit, I suppose, is from my perspective, this is a real opportunity for FM practitioners to really make an influence, as much as we had the opportunity during COVID. I think this is our kind of stage two of proving to the business of how good facilities managers really are in designing things like this. I think in that, though, we do need to think about who our customer is and what who those people are, and I think the reality is it comes down to, what do those people who use the office actually really want? And I think it's great having HR policy, it's great having workplace policy, but those are more and more being influenced by workplace opinion, and that driving that change. And I think that's where, as facilities managers within businesses, I think that's where we're looking at. We need to remember who our customer is and look at designing a workplace policy, standard, process, future based people are looking for, because ultimately they're the future of every business, are the people that are employed within it.
Brilliant. Well, we've set the scene, and I mean, we could have just keep talking about this area, what people are going to do, but we probably should talk about some solutions. So, I mean, Matt, what technologies should organizations who are embracing hybrid consider for managing their office space?
Yeah, so I rather than specific technologies, I think it's more about what you are looking to measure. So,
Yeah.
From our point of view, I think we've said that understanding the intent of what people are looking to do and combining that with what actually happens is the key to making informed decisions. So if you look at intent, asking people to book rooms, desks, other resources that they want to use, I think is a really important thing to know. But there's an understanding that is a barrier to people doing their job. No one I know has ever turned around and high-fived a colleague when it's announced that a new desk booking tool is being put in. So, from an employee point of view, it has to be as frictionless as possible. And we're a desk and room booking system. Our objective is to ensure that employees spend as little time using our software as possible to get what they need. And the other part, understanding usage, utilization. Recording what happens in real time, and again, we think that making this as frictionless as possible is absolutely key. So, making sure that there are ways of checking in automatically, that firstly can't be gamed, and secondly isn't onerous on the employee. So, and things like sensors. Sensors again are controversial. They, we've certainly heard stories about people believing that that's tracking what they're up to and tracking attendance in offices. But I think having seamless, frictionless ways of allowing people to firstly plan what they want to do to make sure that a trip to the office is as productive and happy as possible is really key. From an FM point of view, understanding what actually goes on, so making that again as seamless, as frictionless as possible, with as little ability to game the system or interfere with people's actual job is really key. But I also think as something that Hans and I have been speaking about over the last few weeks is combining this with additional data, combining this with first person feedback from employees as to what they're finding is really important. So I think there's a rather than focusing on specific technologies, I think those are the things that you need technology to help you understand.
Excellent. I mean, Mark, I wanted to get your view because you've done some really interesting research into the sort of accessibility of using tech among AFMs. And let's face it, I mean, it's a very, as we always say, it's a very broad church. So how accessible are FMs seeing digital tools, and how are they being able to convince end users to use them?
I think the accessibility is there. I think it's the adoption that's probably the challenge. I think those are the issues at the moment. I think the other challenge for the sector is that kind of data-driven mindset. I think that's key for me. And we've done some. Try and name drop too much. We've done some research on the importance of data in FM with Matt Tucker. So Matt's director of research at IFMA. He's also got his own organisation called Connected Thought, and we've done quite a big piece of work there, interviewing both demand and supply side organisations, and the real kind of vision of what the future looks like, which I think is where we need to be. But this is the data matters. The AI is nice. That perhaps gives us the bells and whistles, but how we control that data, have good quality data, and I think the whole sector needs to look at how it can adopt data and use it in a robust, practical way to add value is really where the challenges lie. Data fragmentation's there a lot at the moment. There's so many systems. getting a way to get that data into as fewer spaces as possible and
Yeah.
be able to identify the good quality stuff, I think is key. Because if you can do that, that's going to really help. And I cast my mind back to when, as I describe it, when I had a proper job when I was an operations director, before I started on my own. If I was still in that part of the industry now, I'd be looking at that going, okay, what can I do to train the people that work for me to handle data? So FMs can look and optimize that data in the right way and complement it with the skills they've got about knowing the impact of those data-driven decisions. Because you don't need all of the data. Data's always been around, but there's a lot more of it and it's a lot more readily available now. And I think what we need to be able to do is, mine that, if for want of a better phrase. Or some people say, oh, it's the new oil. Well, if it's the new oil, let's refine it and turn it into petrol that can drive the industry without getting too corny. But it's those things that I think we genuinely need to adopt. And there's lots of good examples of what's going on, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's being adopted as a whole across the industry. And that's what we need to do at the moment.
Really useful, Hans. Now, you mentioned earlier about the data being across different departments, and very interesting. That was one of the things I wanted to get back to you about. Within the client base, then, I mean, let's face it, all of us, it's not just about FM, it's about IT, corporate real estate, HR, big time. How on earth do organizations that you're dealing with collaborate on this? And are they using the same tech, or are they in their little silos?
I would say that I can't speak for everyone. For the organizations that I have dealt with and my historic experience, data comes, to Mark's point, in a fragmented way. So the information is there, but what we don't have is a universal spatial standard, for instance, that we incorporate to adopt multiple data sets. And one thing I have to make clear, and I thought about this last night, and that is that FMs aren't information scientists. And what we're looking at is a complete transformation, which is, to Wayne's point, of the whole ecosystem. And there is a fantastic opportunity for FMs to upskill and to get an understanding. But the first and most important thing is that FMs are information scientists. And what we're trying to do is to try and take, the receptionist, the facilities manager, the space planner, and turn them into data scientists, which is not their domain.
Yeah.
So the reality, and to answer your question, what we've had to do is to take that kind of strain and burden away from the clients. And we have to take an approach which is, okay, we have to do data engineering to this client's data. And so I have something which is called a maturity data usability model or completeness model. And what we do is we say, right, you give us your data in its, excuse the language, poor form, waterfall. And the first thing that we do is to say, how usable is this data? So actually, one of the frustrations for clients, however, is the time that it takes to get the meaningful information back to them.
Yeah.
And so this is the challenge that I'm seeing, and that is that we have a fantastic opportunity, but we have to start to look at how we educate our FM. So picking up Mark's point, and how we develop them. And maybe there's a requirement to introduce new roles and a new mandate where you have an individual that is an information specialist, not a data scientist, but an information specialist that understands the industry and understands what needs to be measured. And then with that, you start to build. And there is no, IT is definitely required in this, in order to understand it and to build this kind of single environment. People call it data lakes and those types of things. But again, that is about bringing somebody else in who has that skill. As FMs, we have contextual knowledge. We understand the subject. What we are not are technologists, not unless we're from the HVAC, M&E, building management systems. There's a lot more technical knowledge. But when we talk about the soft services, from my view, they're struggling, under the massive demand from clients, customers about providing information. And everybody's got a siloed report, an Excel spreadsheet. It's
Definitely
just,
Excel.
we need to step back and say, look, how can we help develop our team and upskill them with the foundations and basic needs of information management? We have to go back to the beginning to move forward, because otherwise we're just going around with the same challenges, the same stresses that people are under, and having to try and work out what to do with this data. I don't have the skills. I know that of why I had to upskill myself in order to be able to understand the more advanced level of information science, if you like, to make it easier for me to explain to customers, okay, you think you've got data,
Right. Yeah. But
you don't have information.
yeah.
So we need to turn the data into information before we can turn it into insights. And then those insights become
And then
actionable
use them.
insights.
Yeah.
So it's one of those areas, and Wayne's put it really nice and succinctly, and this is a fantastic opportunity. We cannot predict the future, but we have to start somewhere.
Mark, you had something to say?
Yes, just what we're seeing. I think what's going to happen naturally over the next few years in Workplace and FM, data analysts will be part of teams. That will be a natural byproduct of what goes on. But equally, I think there'll be a symbiotic kind of relationship there, where experienced FMs will know the impact of those data-driven decisions, and they'll be able to share their experiences with the really good people that can drive data. So you'll end up having a data specializing FM manager. I think that's inevitable.
I agree.
Where the industry goes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mark.
Yeah, people have been saying this. I mean, Wayne, I one of the reasons I wanted you to come on today is that you've always been ahead of the curve as an FM, client-side FM, and getting a knowledge base of the tech. But we both know it varies widely across the sector. So I think from your point of view, do you think that is becoming more and more important though in your day-to-day job? And do you think other FMs are sort of not struggling is the wrong word, but being daunted by this? And is there a role then to bring in specialists in the way you might bring in, I don't know, facilities assistant or someone actually hire people who've got this kind of tech background?
Yeah, so I've always seen technology as a tool within FM as much as a spanner is to an M&E contractor. And I think the reality is, I think that as an industry, we're becoming much more engaged in that.
Yeah.
To that point, though, I think a lot of people are put off by the amount of data that there is out there. And I think the development of data and the development of technology is driving more data, which then is putting more and more people off. And I think that's going to drive one of two things. We're either going to engage specialist contractors who can take that data and make it mean something to us. To Hans's point, we are not data specialists. We're very good at the things we do, but data is just part and parcel of the job. Or we're going to start looking to recruit internally people who can interpret that data and make it meaningful, or use future technology, AI, etc., that enables us to build something on that. And I think that's the worry and the concern right now. There's all this technology, there's all this big data, and that's been around for 10 years, right? But actually, how do we turn that into something? And data being the tool, actually, what's the product?
Matt, what's your view on that? Obviously, you're at the front end of this because you're supplying into the market. So you must be seeing a real sort of, I mean, you've got to reassure people that you can kind of hold their hands through a lot of this, don't you?
Yeah, as everyone said, there is a very real challenge in sort of data paralysis. But I think the questions that FMs are being asked to come up with now are very different to what it's ever been before. So, if you've gone within a very short space of time from having an office space, a workspace that you're expecting 100% of people to turn up to all the time, to a flexible working model, that's a significant change. and it might be that you're looking to downsize your office space by 40%. There's the numbers involved in making decisions like that are absolutely incredible. And so you have to have really robust data. The decision is, it's probably the decision is being made at board level, but if you are at board level, you are relying on the facilities managers to provide you with this data. Having Sandra from reception wandering around with a clipboard once a week just isn't going to cut it. The data has to be robust. It has to be, it has to be challengeable, and it has to be, really well measured.
Yeah, and I mean, where do you begin with utilizing the data? What? I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what to ask if you don't know what it is that you need to know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the challenge that the challenge that we are looking to solve on behalf of our customers is making sure that we can demonstrate the integrity of the data.
Yeah.
So if you are if we're providing reports to customers saying that something has happened, this is what we're seeing. We're not looking to interpret that on their behalf. We're providing them with the data, but we have to be able to demonstrate to them that data, the integrity of that data has to be absolutely sacrosanct.
Yeah. Hans?
I'm following on from Matt. When we talk about the quality of the data, the accuracy of the data, that is the piece which is the most important aspect of it all, because the decisions that are presented to the senior leadership team, actions are then taken. So the emphasis has got to be on what does that look like, and this is why certainly we've created these new types of models. And when I talk about models, the ability to be able to take raw data and to look at how complete it is, ready for being used. That's the most important exercise that has to be done with any data. Once you've got that, the next part of the equation is to say, okay, how measurable is this data that we're going to use in order to provide some information? And I use the term information because the information is really just quantifying the, let's call it the frequency, counts and numbers of, whatever the categories are that you've got in your data set. The next exercise is that you share it with stakeholders for them to say, well, no, that's not true. That's not quite right. That data must be wrong, because you need that feedback. And then the next phase of it is that you take that feedback and you adjust the data accordingly to make it measurable based on that feedback. And then you produce your first, what I call cut of what is an insight. So what did the data tell us? And those this is why I said that FMs and such like, they're not information scientists, they're not data scientists. These are approach methods that are applied in data science and information science. So coming back to Matt's point, the role of a technology provider like Matt is to say, well, okay, we're capturing this information. We've worked with you to configure the system accordingly to ensure that we've got the correct labels, descriptions. And so when we report it, we know that we've got a tactical report that's going to give you this information. We've got a summary report that's going to give you this information. We've got an executive report that's going to give you this information. And so it lessens the burden. And if you want to then take that data as the customer and put it into another system, some people are using Power BI or they're using other reporting tools. What you do know, first and foremost, is that the data that you're taking from the system is accurate. I won't go into the details of kind of access control data systems and the quality of the data that is in there, or ticketing systems that, the amount of records that aren't, completed by the operator. I mean, that's why you have to do the data engineering. So, really picking up on this is that let's forget about AI for a minute. And let's just say that if you cannot quantify the accuracy of your data as it stands, you've got no hope of really making use of any AI capability, because it relies on good quality, clean data. So if there wasn't a role that existed before for what we call data engineering of FM data sets, there is a role now, and this is all part of what we call the upskilling and new roles as technologies come in
Yeah,
to the marketplace. So that,
absolutely. Well, I
so
want to bring Mark in here because Mark, you've done that report, Importance of Data and Facilities Management, which I thought was really, really interesting. And a lot, I mean, basically what you're doing is you're looking at why is data important and what FMs need to do. But I mean, what's your take on it? It's all very well. I mean, in an ideal world, lots of organizations go, right, we're going to get a data specialist in, but let's face it, it's a resource issue, isn't it? So what's the kind of fix in the interim before this, as Hans says, this new kind of discipline comes into play?
I think the industry needs to. I feel
Yeah,
quite strongly about this. I need to step up a little bit here, and I
yeah,
think it's all of us. People like me are now working for clients, but whether it's consultants giving advice, providers, industry bodies, membership organisations need to be preparing for this. And I think Hans described the process very eloquently in terms of what you
yeah,
need to do. But we now need to start upskilling people at the sharp end operationally to have something as fundamental as a level 3, level 4, level 5 qualification in identifying what the good data is, because not all of the data will be useful, where that good data is and how you can optimize it and make strategic tactical decisions that are going to have added value to whoever you're working for or to try serving, whether you're in-house doing, and there's some good people doing some really good stuff out there, but it's examples of what's going on, and it needs to be more widely adopted by the industry. I think the Government Property Agency are doing some really good stuff at the moment in terms of what they do with their workplaces and how they manage their assets. And FM, Sarah, you used the phrase earlier, it's a very broad church and everything else. There's a
yeah,
lot going on to what we do, but that's never going to go away. I'm sure Wayne's nodding there, and I've been where Wayne's been in the past. So operationally, there's always a lot to deliver when you're delivering a form of total facilities management. But you can really add some value to organisations by being tuned into what those strategic requirements are, and that's the part that this really does give you the opportunity to do, and really raise the profile of the sector and the industry. And we need to tap into that. And some of it's fundamentals, benchmarking. What are others doing? Where are you? What sector are they in?
yeah.
And you can, and that's fairly simple data management in terms of identifying that element. What's comparable, what's not? Do we need to apply a bit of 80-20 to this? But then we need to take it to the next level now. And the industry as a whole needs to step up and do that. And it's all it's a matter of maturity. It's a bit like sustainability. Now we talk about having 4 levels to where you want to be digitally. It doesn't mean if you're at level 1 or level 2, you're doing a bad job. It's just what's right for your organisation. And if you want to get to level 4, that's great. There might be a target where you want to go to. We present it as a bit of a roadmap, but we think that's a good depiction of where you need to be. And I think that's really what's missing at the moment. I'll get off my high horse now. Sorry, I'm ranting.
No, it's true. It's true that, and I think let's when we've done sort of what the issue is, what the solution is, let's talk about the benefits, which is always the nice bit when you're talking about tech, especially for me because I'm not very good with tech. So I mean, what if we start with you, Matt? Because this is your raison d'etre, as it were. What are the main benefits? I mean, we're talking about saving in corporate real estate, energy. Give me some scenarios where effective software has helped improve, and also engage the stakeholders as well, at both occupiers and sort of the board.
Yeah, I think we see that we have three elements that we're looking to help our customers with. So we provide software to organizations, and one of the reasons is to make sure that their employees are able to be happy and productive when they come into the office. So if you don't know that you can get access to the resources that you need, even something as basic as you don't know if you can have a parking space, and you might have to walk half a mile to the office. If you don't have to come in, you may not decide to. Everyone understands the cost of working now. You understand that it's going to cost you X amount to buy a train ticket to travel in the car. You're going to spend £5 in Starbucks on coffee. There is a cost to going to the office, and we help our clients ensure that their employees are happy and productive when they come to the office. So that's number one. Number two is this provision of data that we've discussed at length, and so we don't need to go into that anymore. The third part is ensuring that organizational goals can be achieved. So that is what are organizations looking to do with their working environments? What are the business rules that they're trying to impart? And that's something that we help with. So there's a myriad of different things that organizations are looking to do. Some common ones are organizations challenge us that they want to flatten the curve. They have people coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Mondays and Fridays are quieter. Are there ways of flattening that curve? Are there what ways are there of getting more people into less space as you downsize? Can we help with challenges like that? One that, Sarah, we were just discussing previously, just before the webinar, was a very straightforward one, but meeting room usage. We get a lot of customers coming to us and saying that they have challenges. From a facilities manager point of view, facilities managers are constantly being moaned about the availability of meeting rooms. And it's something that's visible. So people are wandering around, they're seeing there's a single person taking a call in an 8-person meeting room, that's blocked out for 2 hours. Yeah. What can we do about that? So I'd say, those are the three things. Overcoming those very sort of practical facilities management challenges, helping with data to inform future decisions, and making sure that employees are happy and productive when they come into the office.
Brilliant. Now, Wayne, you're at the sharp end of all this. What are you doing about sort of predicting future needs? And are you finding that you're needing to sort of persuade people to listen when you go, look, we can't just sort of hope for the best and go, right, we're going to make people come in certain days, because that's just not human beings work, is it?
No, and I think I'm in a quite interesting situation in my role, in the sense that I work for a business where we're still quite traditional. The railway industry is still very traditional in a sense. Because of that, we're on a journey, and I hate that word journey, but we are on a journey around technology and how we utilize technology in our business. I am all for us needing to do that, because we do have those quiet days that every business has, and we want to flatten those curves. But we also have a lot of office space that isn't utilized in its best way, and we could do a lot more with it. So I think the key element from my perspective that I've tried to sell to the business is, by using technology, we can look at how we can give the best work environment to our people, and that's looking at where we have people placed, where we have people using those spaces, what kind of meeting rooms are used the most, what kind of meeting rooms are needed, and also, actually, do we really need 2-3 floors of office space, or actually can we condense it to one and make it a really wow space that can be utilized for everybody, and use the other spaces through leases and other things that we can do to it that pays for that wow space. And that's ultimately the journey we're on as a business right now, is actually, let's make our workplace fit for future.
Excellent. Hans, your clients, are you able to help them plan far forward? Or are they still being kind of short-term thinking when things change, when hybrid working's over, when we introduce a mandate? I mean, I know you don't want to be dissing your clients, but what I'm saying is, give me kind of an overview of what people are telling you, and you're dealing as well with a lot of stakeholders in that respect from the FM. Again, we said for HR, etc.
I'd say to you, given the kind of use case, which is probably more succinct, and that is where we introduce new ways of working, work with the architects, new design layout, lovely. Everybody comes back to the office, and because we put in certain measurable technologies and such, and desk and meeting room bookings, what we were able to discover was that there were certain workspaces that weren't being utilized. And so when we then assessed the overall demand for, or what was lacking rather, in the space and what the customer needs were driving at, we then realized that perhaps we need to reconfigure an original space and turn it into what we call a multifunctional space to give it
Okay.
flexibility so that it can be used for a training room, a conference room, some extended town hall space. And but we had to introduce new kind of technologies and so on and so forth for it. But what it showed to the client was that we were able to adapt the space in accordance with the changing needs of the business and the usage.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things, even if I kind of like aim like another client, like Eurostar, who made decisions to downsize and, they had two different policies in both UK and Eastern Europe.
Mm.
One of the things that came out of there was, okay, how do we work out the problems that we're facing with this data? And by doing so, how do we then give it to the executive board to
Yeah.
make some, not what I call the perception observational theories, but more factual evidence of the behaviors of how a policy wasn't working by not
Mm.
having a mandate in place?
Yeah.
And those are the types of what I call benefits to the FM and the portfolio and the real estate team, because you're providing insights, to how the space is working in real life, and what does that mean for what needs to evolve in order to meet the changing needs of the business. And I think we can't underestimate this. The business is changing continuously. And so space has to be that also
Has to be the same. It has to flex.
it has to flex. And I don't always think of just what I call like a new build space or new designs. It's about
Mm.
existing space, and what can you do with the existing space? And to Wayne's point, looking at perhaps, okay, if we do want to consolidate, but how can we introduce maybe how do you flatten that curve? And it's all those types of queries that we've had from different individuals, managers, FMs, that all that comes on board, and then you are able to showcase, okay, this is what you can do, this is the benefit, and then measuring that then afterwards to ensure that you've made those adaptations, and is it still working? People are putting in phone pods to stop people from going to stand in
Oh,
the corridor and
we've
have
talked about
or
that, haven't
staircases.
we?
But then they find they've put in too many, so
Yeah.
they're not being utilized. So what do you do with them? And that's where we talk about redistributing them through the estate, through the portfolio, and it goes on in terms of the benefits that you can get by having a cohesive kind of like collective approach to managing the workspace.
Right. We're running out of time. I wanted to put one question to all of you, and then well, actually no, I wanted to speak to ask Mark first from again your research.
Mhm.
'Cause you've got sort of an umbrella thing, and also you're chair of judges for the IWFM, so you're seeing a lot of these case studies.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's more confidence about using things like AI, booking systems, the sort of things that Matrix do within the sector whenever you're looking across the board at the various sectors as well that you're judging? Are you seeing a more positivity in terms of the attitudes about using this tech?
Definitely. I think from the
Yeah.
awards perspective, I mean,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, before I was chair of judges, I headed up the technology
Mm.
award for IWFM. And obviously, I see the kind of volume of entries go up. It's one of the higher levels of entrants now from different organisations, and they're not just service providers or specialists like Matt's organisation and others.
Mm.
It's also in their clients as well, taking the initiative in terms of what they do and where they are. So yeah, I think people are becoming much more savvy around how they can use it for better business outcomes, and I think that's the thing. And clients as well. I think that
Yeah.
they're in what we see in the day-to-day business as well, just in terms of where they want to go and where they want to be. I think they're open to suggestions about how they can go down this, and the more informed ones are open to, they'll listen to what's been suggested rather than go in with predetermined directions of travel, which I think is the key one now. But I think it's flexibility is key with all of this. Where you end up, I think you've got to, in terms of the work space is key to all of this in everything we do in FM. How it's utilised, what we do with it, how we get the best value out of it, and organisations measure that in lots of different ways. But you've got to maintain that flexibility, because things move so quickly now. These last 5 years, they continue to motor on, and I think it's a huge pace, totally different rhythm compared to what it used to be. Typical business cycles will plan ahead for 5, 6, 7 years. Now, long-term planning by some is looking at 3. I think there's a Harvard Business Review now in terms of that's come out recently about that and what that looks like. So I think that's the key one now. I think you've got to be. It's a bit like journey, Wayne. Overused phrase, but it's that agile approach now. It has got to be. There's got to be a lot more nimble in terms of how you can turn things around, and think about that at the time of designing and implementing these things.
Right, talking of technology, for some reason my screen is completely frozen, so I can't see the questions. I'm going to ask either our host or one of you to tell me what people are asking, because I know there are questions, but I can't see them. Matt, what?
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting question, Sarah, about. So it was an anonymous attendee saying that one of the challenges is looking to move from an organisation with no systems to having multiple systems, and how do you manage bringing all of those together? So, I'm not sure I'm best placed to answer that, because I only have one system to sell. So,
I can take that one. And that is, you need to have a master plan, a master strategy, in order to identify bringing them all in. And the good thing is that if you don't have anything, having that initial kind of I'm not saying services here, but having that kind of initial consultation to understand what your needs are, and what your operation is, your business, and what you're trying to achieve, and the problem you're trying to solve. That's the starting point. And I wouldn't make any recommendations on any technology, at this stage, until you've got a blueprint that sets out what it is that you actually need, because you can waste a lot of money.
Yeah. Right. I've got one last question for everyone, which I think is quite good. This is about not so much about the tech, but the way people use space. And what do you do about staff who do the workarounds, which is, that you decide you're not going to bother using the software you provide it with to book a space because you want to go and sit over there. And this is almost about behavioural stuff. So this is a nice way to finish off kind of around the room. If we kick off with Hans, Mark, Wayne, and then Matt, you can finish off, because you must come across this with. So Hans, what have you heard of the workaround? People go, yeah, I know I'm supposed to use that, but I won't.
Do you know what? It's communication, it's education, and it's demonstrating that one person's behaviour affects the team, affects everyone. And I think that is a principle from what we call nudge theory. We have to make people understand that their individual actions, when it comes to the office workspace, impacts everybody. And that's an educational piece, and that's almost like a short answer, to that question.
Mark, what about you? I mean, again, you've done some really good research into kind of the FM side, but they must report back that they're then having to deal with the end users, get them to accept that this is the new way of doing things.
Yeah, I think some of it goes back to basics in terms of when you're implementing a change, is that dialogue, it's that engagement, and also the stakeholder piece doesn't just end when you've implemented it. It's that kind of post-project evaluation, to use some old-fashioned language, but it's still relevant. What's worked, what's not, being open to what's not. Why is that person doing that workaround? What for them doesn't work? You'll always get your dissenter, but given what the organisation wants to get out of it, and there's a lot of focus now on employee retention. Now, it's difficult to recruit in nearly every industry in the UK. So us as FMs provide that value to organisations to say, okay, make the workplace more appealing, more functional, get your teams together at the right time to give better outcomes when you're working on a project or whatever. So I think it's perhaps not the data will help, and no doubt, and driving that and getting that to give you those insights that Hans described and Matt described earlier. But equally, the why, why are we doing this? What have we done to communicate it? Blah, blah, blah. And listening to what's being fed back around it. Because you probably find it's not the only person doing the work around it. It might just be a more visible one.
Oh, okay.
The other thing. Yeah. And just trying to tap into that, trying to understand why that's happening. And I think if you can do that, that's going to help.
Wayne, what about you? Have you found this, trying to get people, because we've talked about this, as I say, in the past as well, it's rife, isn't it? You get so many different levels of confidence with using tech, or people who go, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I think there's almost four parts to this. I think you've got to start with the end in mind. You've got to start with designing a system whereby it makes it difficult for those things to happen. And I think there's multiple opportunities, and engaging with your specialist contractor that you're utilising for that technology for them to share their experiences as well, because it will happen, and it happens everywhere. I think, to Mark's point, you need to understand if it's happening after that. Why is it happening? What's the stopper around that? What's the challenges? Why are those stakeholders choosing not to follow the system? And then lastly, I think the senior engagement piece, you need to engage up and down so that ultimately the people who are doing it, you can rely upon process and those kind of type things to understand and limit that behaviour as well. It's a difficult one. I don't think there's a really easy answer to it. I think there's 4 steps you need to make sure you cover off.
Matt, if you're talking to clients and they've got this issue, it must come up. What kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I go back to the point I made earlier that one of the objectives we're trying to help our customers deal with is that employees need to be happy and productive when they come to the office. There is, whether you're forcing people to come in or encouraging people to come in, they are going to be resentful if they feel that that they're going into the office to do things they could have done at home, and if people are finding ways around policies or not working exactly the way that you think they should, that's presumably because that's what works for them. They're not doing it to be difficult. They're doing it because that's what helps them have a happy and productive time in the office. So not everything will go according to plan, but again, I reiterate what the other panelists have said, that understanding, having the systems to allow you to track this if people are operating outside of the norm, outside of the expectation, do you understand that that's happening? And do you need to adjust your policies, adjust the way the office is laid out, adjust the way that you deal with people to accommodate that? Because as I say, they are doing it for what they consider to be valid reasons.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. We've kind of overrun a bit, so I do appreciate your time. I just want to thank Matt, Mark, Hans, and Wayne, and to let everyone know that this is being uploaded. So if you came in late or there's some other issues that you missed or you want to rewatch, be our guest. We'll post this up in a couple of days. And thanks again. I think we might want to do a rematch in about a year's time and see what the picture looks like then, especially when AI is completely taken over. And that's it. Thank you very much.